Okay, Deanna, we're ready. Before you start, everybody, your assignments are due by Sunday. Okay, so it gives you extra time. Sunday by midnight Eastern Standard Time. Please reach out to me if you need any help, and I will walk you through everything on Zoom. Okay, Deanna, it's all yours.
All right, sounds good. So welcome everyone to our very last webinar Wednesday. We have had, this is the 7th, actually the 8th actual webinar because we had 2 the first week, but this is our 7th week. We have been through many topics, and this week we're really focusing on what to do now. We have all this information. How do we take it? How do we apply it? What do we do with it? And then we also focus on our network. What's the importance of building a network? How do we do that? Is there a strategic way? And then we'll touch a little bit on your bail team. What is a bail team? And how important is it? When should you start to incorporate those members of your bail team? What's a good point in your business to do that? So we're going to cover a lot of that today. And then, as I was just saying a few minutes ago, I'll also be sending you an email near the end of the week just to kind of sum our course up to talk about next steps. Those of you that want Sandra at the end of probably sometime next week when she finishes grading everything, she'll be sending me a list of all those who are graduates, and you will be receiving a really nice certificate in the mail with a really nice cover that we've put together for you to have. And then just as a reminder, as all of you applied originally to our 3-phase EBV program, you are all still eligible to take that program in 2021. And the enrollment team will follow up with you and connect with you as soon as new dates are announced for the 2021 programs. So we'll make sure to be doing that. And then within the next couple of weeks, you'll receive an email that has an invite to one more webinar, but it will be from our alumni services team. And they're going to be talking about, now that you are a graduate of one of our programs and you are now members or alumni members of the IVMF, what resources are available to you and what other programs are you eligible for, and ways to continue to engage with us and resources that you can connect with. So more of all that to come later, but just wanted to let you know that you'll be expecting that. All right, so let's get started. So I just would like to give our panelists a couple of moments to briefly introduce themselves. Your bios are all on Blackboard for the class, so if you want to dive further into what their business is and who they are, those are all within our learning platform. So we have 4 panelists with us today. We have Kathleen, we have Kilo, we have Michael, and we have Crystal. They're all graduates of various programs that we offer. They're all business owners. And I would say that they are all pretty successful and doing well. And so they have taken, actually each person has, I believe, taken at least 2 of the programs that we offer, if not more. So they're a great resource to connect with. So first off, I think I'll just start to, the first person I see on my screen to the right is Kathleen. So Kathleen, could you please introduce yourself?
Certainly. My name is Kathleen Ford. I am indeed a graduate of at least 2 IVMF programs. I think I'm a graduate of all of them. So I'm the owner of a business called SC Datacom. We're a security integrator based out of Savannah, Georgia. In business, my partner in business is my daughter, who was actually the founder, and I came in about a year later, about a year after I retired from the military. So this is nothing like what I did in the military. It's a whole different journey, very interesting and enjoyable, but quite a steep learning curve. And I think I got a spark of what this could be at my very first IVMF in-person conference, which was VWise in Boston some years ago. and just got a taste of what kind of resources were out there for me, and started to get tapped in, and that's been a very fruitful journey for me. So I enjoy these events very much, and I'm happy to answer any questions I can for all of you who are putting your toe in the water of entrepreneurship, or maybe already have both feet in some cases.
Thank you very much. And the next I have on my screen is Kilo.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Kalo Makaleli, and I'm the founder and Director of Operations of Red Trace Technologies. We're a cybersecurity, information technology, and management consulting firm, primarily supporting the U.S. intelligence community, but we have other clients, and we're based in the DC metropolitan area. I am a graduate of 2 IBMF programs. EBV was the first one. That's the Boot Camp for Veterans, Entrepreneurship Boot Camp for Veterans, and EDGE. Did EDGE in Dallas just earlier this year.
Thank you, Kilo. And we'll go to Michael and Crystal.
Go ahead. Okay. Hi, my name is Crystal Wambeck, and I am a bookkeeper and fraud examiner here in North Carolina. I have a bookkeeping firm that I've been growing very steadily for the last 5 years. I am a graduate of VWise, EBBF, and 2 vet edges, and the programs are incredible. The people are incredible, and I just love teaching. And so I teach a lot to my clients. I teach a lot to any classes at community colleges. So I really enjoy doing that. So any questions, I'm always happy to help. I'm an open book. So whether it's business or accounting information. So that is me.
Michael Barbera. I am the Chief Behavioral Officer at Clixuasion Labs. We're a behavioral science research firm. We research all the quirky things that we do with consumers and then apply psychology to marketing, communication, and employee engagement. Although I am formally trained and educated as a psychologist, I am an entrepreneur by torture. I've been an entrepreneur since I was 13, had many more failures than I've had successes. Crystal is an accountant and I work in psychology. We're both entrepreneurs. In April, we started a business called RakeMates, a lawn care company, just to create jobs. And we're always looking for opportunities to expand our knowledge and torture ourselves. And so every day we look at our calendar and say, how many minutes are remaining to fit another business in here somewhere else?
Thank you very much to all of you. So now you have a little bit better picture of who these panelists are. So now I'd kind of like to focus, as I said, as we start kind of these questions. Just a reminder, if anybody has a question, feel free to put it in the chat. If anybody else wants to ask it live, just do what we've done in the past and raise your hand or let me know you'd like to ask a question and we'll go to you. So the first question that I have to kind of get us started is on the idea of a bail team. All right, so just to give everyone that might not know what a bail team is, BAIL stands for banker, accountant, insurance, lawyer. So these are 4 important people that you should have on your team. That doesn't mean you hire these 4 people. It just means that you have a banker, you have an accountant, you have an insurance agent or insurance, and you have a lawyer, someone you can go to for legal advice. So with that being said, I'd like to just kind of open it up to all 4 of you, not specifically one or not specifically one of you, but if you could just give us, do you have a bail team? If so, do you have a part of a bail team? And a follow on to that would be, when in your business did you decide that was important?
All right,
Go ahead, Kathleen.
Okay. I just wanted to fill the silence, really. I do have a bail team. That was something I learned at the VWise conference. I hadn't previously known about it or realized I needed one. So I have all of those roles filled now, some with more success than others, all successful at this point. But I think that, in my opinion, the ones that were critical early, so this may surprise people, were accounting and insurance. People may say the other two would be the front of mind, but the reason I say that, the legal, first of all, I'm assuming most people who start a business are cash strapped or are concerned about the cash flow early on and can't afford to have these expensive, exclusive relationships with all these people. So legal tends to be pretty expensive, and I felt like I could, and I'd like to hear what my fellow entrepreneurs think, but I felt like I could get by with some common legal documents early on until I was a little more established. Now, if I were writing proposals for cyber work for the security sector, that may not be the case, but early on that worked for me. I'll be honest, I used LegalZoom a little bit for some contracts and that sort of thing. And that got me by until later on. But the accounting was essential early for me, and the insurance, much to my surprise, comes up in many, many transactions on a weekly basis. And I have my insurance broker on speed dial, and they're very helpful to me. So the banking was a struggle. People really didn't want to help me early on. It was really tough. And I have probably was 3 years into business before I succeeded in getting what I would consider a good banking relationship. So while it's important, I felt like I just had to make do without it early on, because they want you to be successful to help you be successful was my experience. So.
Kilo, I saw you had a couple of comments as well.
Yeah. So I'll run down the line with these teams. Long story short, for me, well, if I had advice I could give to up and coming entrepreneurs, is get that team in place yesterday, and I'll go down the line. So the banker got that component, the first banker, online as soon as we got the articles of incorporation back from LegalZoom. It went through LegalZoom. And then, but soon realized that banker was not the best fit for our industry. Went with Capital One to begin with, and it didn't offer the line of credit that we needed. It didn't offer the credit card for the initial purchases. I want to run everything through the business and keep the accounting, clean and separate from personal funds. So there's no commingling of funds. And so after working the network and some other references, we transitioned over to M&T, and they have a business unit that works specifically for my industry. So that was wonderful, and it was totally night and day. And they're a little bit smaller, I wouldn't say regional, but they're a smaller bank, and it was able to develop that one-on-one relationship with a actual banker, not just being forced to an 800 number and just pick whoever answers the phone. So that was good. Moving down to the accountant. So there's two components to that. There's the accountant, and then there's the bookkeeper. So the accountant, we had that on from the beginning. We did research, and prior to starting the company, and we lined everything up, and was given some recommendations to ensure that we had the accountant online. Now, when I tried to cut costs, as Kathleen was saying, like I didn't want to show all this money out up front, we're bootstrapping. I said, I don't need a bookkeeper. I'll get QuickBooks. I'll do it myself. And that's what I did, and realized that was a mistake, especially for my industry. So, we have different regulations called like the FAR, the Federal Acquisition Register, and there's other laws, and DCAA compliance and DCMA compliance, and certain charts of accounts that have to be lined up correctly, and certain charges are can be binned in certain locations. And so as a cost saving measure, I'll figure it out myself. I can do it. It's not that hard. It's just drag and drop. And everything was fine until we had to go for a review for one of the contracts we were going after, and then we realized, oh wow, I should have got a better bail team in place. So after that, we got a bookkeeper offer recommendation. And then the next thing I would say is even though you get recommendations, make sure you vet the potential service providers that are offered to you. So while this initial bookkeeper was good at general bookkeeping, she was not well versed in the GovCon space. And so I should have went with a higher priced bookkeeper that was truly experienced in the GovCon space, which would have served me better. So that was one of the mistakes that I made early on. But now we're good. So those two components, the banker and the B and the A of the bail team is together. It's good. The insurer, that was pretty relatively easy, and that was almost forced upon us. Part one of the contracts before we even signed it. You had to have a COI, certificate of insurance, and it had the requirements that for errors in omission and other components that were required in it. So I just essentially took that paper. Hartford was recommended. Gave it to the Hartford and said, "Hey, what's your quote?" And I got 2 other quotes, and they're going back with the Hartford, and so that was easy. And I've changed maybe 3 times in the past 2 years to increase the amount of coverage. So that was a no-brainer. Now, last one, lawyer. I recommend is get lawyers involved before you need to get lawyers involved. That's the mantra that I go by now. And again, at first I was a little hesitant. I was like, I don't want to pay several $100s an hour to a lawyer. I can read these contracts myself. I can Google terms that I don't understand. But then I got some sage advice, and it's like, hey, just go ahead and bite the bullet and pay a lawyer, have them review these contracts to make sure that you're in this covered. And that they can review it to make sure the T's and terms and conditions are in your favor, or at least 50-50 and not skewed towards the other parties involved. So even though I did not like writing the check to pay for those lawyers, they're well worth it, and it gives you that peace of mind further down the road.
Thanks so much. Before we move to Michael and Crystal, I just want to ask a question of the panelists. Did anyone invite someone by the name of Jackie Grabinski to the Zoom call today? Just want to make sure. We always do a meeting password. Sandra lets everybody in, and that name came up. So we just wanted to make sure. So we'll just leave them in the waiting room. No worries. Just wanted to make sure. So let's move over to Michael and Crystal about the bail team. Love to hear from you.
Okay, I'll go. So as the extra B in the bail team, that's what I do. So having a bookkeeper is key. And I actually see a question from Tiana. Do you mind if I address that?
No, go ahead. I was actually going to ask that of you as the next question.
Okay, all right. So I'll go ahead and address that. So Tiana asked, what is anybody's thoughts on accounting via QuickBooks to start off with? She says, the business is pretty simple, no employees and low startup costs. As a bookkeeper who cleans up a lot of messes, I will tell you that there is no really truly simple business. If you want to do books yourself, get some help to start off with. Get your chart of accounts set up, get one kind of sequence or month or 2 of bookkeeping done, and get set on the right path. Don't just start off on your own trying to figure it out and blaze your own trail. There's no reason to blaze trails in accounting. The rules haven't changed since the Stone Ages. So get someone to just tell you about it, and then you'll be smooth sailing from there. Have somebody review it quarterly or biannually and make sure you're doing things right. So that question, I will talk about my business's bail team because that's why we're here. So I noticed that during COVID, there was that PPP loan everybody heard about, right? From the experience of my clients and myself and everyone that I know that's in business, it was impossible to get a PPP loan from that first push or any sort of SBA EIDL loan unless you had an established relationship with a bank. And those bankers that knew you would push you to the front of the line. It doesn't seem fair, it doesn't seem right, but it's what happened because you're an established business, they know who you are. So people were getting priority at their established banks. If you weren't already a customer at a bank, you weren't getting a loan there. So having that is important. You don't have to necessarily know the banker themselves. I particularly have a relationship with a bank, not a banker. where I bank at, they're frequently changing people. The turnover there is really high. So I don't know how I'm expected to make a relationship with any of them. They don't stay long enough for me to know them, right? So, but being an established customer at a bank is really, really good. Insurance, definitely go with an agent. For the more complicated stuff, like I have cyber insurance and all sorts of fancy other professional insurances. That kind of stuff you can't buy through the Hartford. So I have an agent for that. And when anything changes, when I hire someone new or we, do something different in our business, like add a new service, she's my first call. Hey, are we insured for this? Right? And she'll tell you. She knows me. She'll tell you what you're covered for. And legal team, yes. Employment law, business law, contract law. Get your ducks in a row before you need it. So you have someone to call if something arises. So that's really, really strong advice.
So I'll talk about the banker and the attorney portion, because I really don't have a bail team. I more have bail individuals, because no one really talks to each other. They're all on their own accord, and I contact them whenever I need them.
Right.
And they don't know who my accountant is or who my insurance agent is, but they're there when I need them. And so the relationship's important. So like what Crystal said about the PPP loan, I applied, I got on this wait list. Okay, whatever, they'll contact me when it comes. Never really had a relationship with a banker because they hold my money. I take cash out, I put cash in. No, they don't bother me. I don't bother them. No big deal. But then when it comes time to the PPP, now I'm on this wait list, and then I recommend other colleagues of mine, hey, go apply. You never know. You might, if you get it, take it. If you don't need it, pay it right back. And then I recommend this to colleagues, and they would apply weeks after I did, and they got it within 4 days. It's like, oh, what the H? So that relationship is important. But the area where I really focus the relationships on are the attorneys, because attorneys are they specialize in niche areas. And so someday I might need, today this emergency happened in HR, and now I need an HR attorney who represents employers in the state of Nevada. Okay, now I'm gonna spend the next 8 hours trying to find this one unicorn in the state of Nevada who actually is available, can do the work, and knows what I'm talking about. So, and once I find that person, I hug them and don't let them go forever, because I might need them hopefully I never need them ever again. But if I do, I found them and want to maintain that relationship with them as best as possible.
I didn't realize I was on mute. Thank you very much. I appreciate your thoughts on that. And just to kind of just give the class a reference, there are a lot of agents out there, a lot of companies out there that do small business insurance. And it's important to really know, if you really want some good recommendations for business insurance, just shoot me an email. IVMF has some really good partnerships with some insurance companies out there. Also, there are some insurance companies that offer HR services. So look into that as well. If you're a sole proprietor, or you have 1 to 2 employees, or just a couple employees, and you really don't have the capability to hire an HR person, well, there's companies out there that can be your HR for you. So if you need recommendations for those things, just feel free to email me. So I have some other questions, but it's more important that we get to our cohort questions, and we just have another one here in the chat. So I'm just going to read through this. You know what, let me read through this. Let me ask another question. I'll read through this and see, because this might be something. Actually, let's just read through this together, because this is a conversation. So Angela has to get off the call shortly. But she's trying to start her business as a life coach or mental health coach, public speaking. Not sure that she can do it full time, all the time due to her service-connected disabilities. She's 100% through the VA, so would be coming off of that and dropping down to 90% rating. Can you give any advice about veterans with disabilities trying to transition back to the workforce without completely screwing up our benefits and doing it to ensure our success?
I'll jump in, because so I am a disabled veteran. I work in consulting primarily, and I do a lot of public speaking. So your business can be as simplistic or as complex as you want it to be. If you want to be a one-person operation, speak once a month, consult twice a month, and that's it, so be it. That's fine. If you want to scale and grow your business to have 20 employees, that's okay as well too. There's no right or wrong way to operate in business. I would say, one, make sure you're cash flow positive, because if you don't make money, you just have a hobby, and hobbies don't pay the bills. So as long as you're cash flow positive and you're happy, who cares how big or complex or small your business is? And as long as you're happy, that's really what matters.
Anybody else want to take a stab at that?
I don't know anything about the IU, so I do have a service-connected disability, but not the IU specific piece, so I can't answer that and how full-time employment would affect those benefits.
Yeah, I can't speak on that either. But just reading the question, the one thing I would say is just do a cost benefit analysis. Look at how much your income would drop if you were reduced to 90%, and understand how much revenue is being brought in from the business, and is it worth that drop? Can you still meet your basic needs, afterwards? And if it gives you more pleasure and more enjoyment, and you feel more fulfilled, and you have a reduction in income, but you can still survive, then I say go for it.
And Angela, let me put you in touch. Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead. Go ahead.
You can-
No, go
You
ahead,
can
Jay.
also either partner or JV with someone and keep your benefits. So you don't have to necessarily be the end all be all. As long as you have majority of the business under your name, you still keep your set asides. But that way you're not doing all the work. You have a team, or you're coordinating with someone. Like, you could probably find another coach that is willing to do events with you, or someone that can kind of partner in a way like that, and that you can balance out. That way you keep 100% your benefits in your business.
Thank you so much.
And Angela, I will make a note to connect you with someone that I know who's a business owner, veteran of our programs, and also works at the VA and deals with a lot of benefit stuff. So he might be able to give, just from his own experience and things like that, some really sound advice, being that he works and knows the VA process really well. So I'll make a note of that and get you in contact with him.
Thank you all so much.
Absolutely. So Helena has a question that she would like to ask. Go ahead.
Alrighty, good evening. Thank you everyone for being on our panel. So my question is, how soon after you started your business did you begin hiring your additional employees? And have either of you yet hired your own bookkeeper, or are you still just outsourcing your bookkeeping functions?
I can take it. I don't want to jump the mic, but we hired a bookkeeper early on. She was one of our first full-time employees. Truthfully, probably sooner than we needed her, but it set us up for success. So we outsource the accounting, but we have an internal bookkeeping, and that's been very helpful for us. So it was one of our early hires. And was your question specific to the accounting and bookkeeping side of the business, or were you asking about hiring other employees?
Yeah, so how soon did you begin hiring? At what stage did you know it was okay to hire all the additional employees that you have? Or are you still kind of like 1 or 2 man operations? And I say that because a lot of people didn't even qualify for PPP nationwide because they didn't have the 5 minimum employee requirement for that loan. So how soon did you begin hiring the additional people to support your operations, or did you do outsourcing where you like use a temp service for a while?
For my business, we have 2 types of hiring. So we have 16 people right now, 16 full-time employees. We have above the line employees, meaning, overhead, or excuse me, direct, what do I want to say? Like our technicians and such that are performing billable work. Those are easy to hire all day, every day, because they're billing for their work. The painful hires are the indirects and the people that just represent overhead. And when I say painful, it's just a gut check about, can you afford it? Is it the right way to spend your money, etc. So that's adding salespeople, bookkeeper, ops manager, anybody who's really not directly billable. Kilo, yours might be a little bit different because of your DCAA. So some of those people may be billable in your model. I'm not sure. But so for me, it's always been easy to hire technicians that are going to go bill. It's been more challenging to decide when's the right time to hire sales people and support people. But when we have done it, it's always paid off. It just improves operations so tremendously that it's been worth the pain of the salaries. So I don't know if that helps answer your question.
I would love to answer this question. So I, being the bookkeeper, I had that part covered, so that was fine. So that was one headache off my plate, but I'm the kind of person that is 100% stubbornly independent, refuses to ask for help, ever. And so it's a miracle I even asked to get in this program, right? Like, so honestly, it took me about 4 years to hire my first employee, and they were contractors that would just come in and help me with little bitty things that I just was running out of time to do. I probably could have grown 10 times faster in that second year or the first year had I let go of the reins and let go of the control and accepted that I'm going to have to do this eventually. But I stuck it out and just stayed stagnant and just did what I could for the first few years. And then I thought, all right, I can grow. So you have to be comfortable with hiring. First of all, you have to know that you can support it. It's a big commitment because you're not only looking at what you need in your business, but you're also affecting someone's livelihood and ability to pay their mortgage and eat. And if you can't support them, if you hire them on a whim, can't support it, that's huge for them. So I wanted to be sure that I could potentially commit to supporting them as well as myself. So keeping that in mind. Also, I want to address the PPP loan. You mentioned that you heard about a 5-employee minimum for the requirement of the PPP loan. I would implore you to recheck those requirements because that's one I hadn't heard. I'm not sure that is a correct requirement. So the applications are still open until August 8th. So I would implore you to maybe check that out again. Okay, that's it. Do you want to go?
Sure. I think it was about 2 or 3 years in before I hired my first employee. My intent was to be a solo consultant, solo practitioner, and just to take clients when they come in, and no big deal. But then a good problem, I got more work, and it got so much, not only work, but also the admin work to support that piled up so much, and then the sales to drive more work. Just my day was full from wake up till sleep, and it wasn't a good quality of life. So I had to make a decision to hire someone. So I did some contract work at first, hired some contractors, and then it's like, all right, I need to invest in someone to be a full-time employee, to grow this business and to be, in the weeds with me every day. And so you'll know when the time is right. You'll know when you have so much work on your plate that you just can't manage it all, but there's so much work that can also be revenue generating that you can pass with someone else as an investment. Mm-hmm. And it is scary having to, hire somebody because now you're responsible for their mortgage and feeding their family. It's very nervous, but I would say if you do choose to hire slow. Hiring the wrong person can be extremely costly. It can get messy, and then you'll have to start from scratch X number of days later.
And I would add to that, it depends. Depends on what your business model is. So for me, it was about 6 months in when we hired the first employee, and that's because we're contract driven. It's based off of your revenue model. If you have sold and funded work, and then you need to hire employees to handle that. And then there's two types of hires. We have client facing, and then we have overhead. There's a direct in our business model. There's a direct correlation between when we have the ability to hire overhead staff is directly tied to top line revenue and profitability. As a matter of fact, based off of those client-facing staff that we have out there. So, as revenues and profits rose from the work being performed by the client-facing staff, then that then was the green light to bring on overhead staff. And still, just because a bit of a fiscal hawk, we're outsourcing all of that back office stuff right now. In order to keep costs low. So the bookkeeper is outsourced, and the HR is outsourced, and all the back office support is outsourced right now.
Thank you. Natasha had a question in the chat. I want to get to that, and then we'll go to Monifa's. She's wondering if any of our panelists have used invoice factoring in the startup phase of your business.
No, and I would recommend to steer clear of that, because once you get on that hamster wheel, it's kind of hard to get off. I bootstrapped. I used savings that I had, pulled it out, and just made that commitment to myself that I know that it's going to be lean in the beginning, and just mentally and financially prepared myself for that. I would highly recommend not going with factoring unless you absolutely had to.
I never used the factoring either. And I'm a big proponent of bootstrapping. I did have the luxury of a military retirement. So, not everyone's in that position, but I did get a paycheck as a retired military member, which allowed me to work for free for 3 years, which I did. I understand that's not everybody's position, but you got to go lean and dig deep and bootstrap and make it happen, in my opinion, because you can just, the margins are tight in a startup, and you're just giving money away when you are forced to do those type of measures. They're just making money on you, and you're giving away precious margin. So I'd do everything to not do that. It would be my advice.
Michael and Crystal, since we're kind of on that idea of how you start up with funding, how did you fund your startup?
Sarcasm and faith. So yeah. So I didn't do any invoice factoring. Like Cato said, it's a tough hamster wheel to get off of. So, factoring the random invoice versus all of your invoices is a very different situation. So I'm not sure exactly what, industry you are, if factoring is a kind of a required thing, or, how big the invoices are. But I would definitely say it's giving somebody money on your hard work. If you can avoid it, avoid it.
So for the lab, it was bootstrap. I put some personal money into it as an injection to buy the certain equipment or software that was needed and required, and then bootstrap going forward. For RateMates, for the lawn care company we started back in April, Crystal and I assessed how much would it cost to start this, what is our burn rate, and how much do we need to inject, and we just identified it and split the difference.
Yeah.
Great, thank you so much. Monifa has a question. If you all know of, other than business insurance, do you know of any other possible insurance coverages that you should look at? Do you have anything specific? Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so I love insurance. It's my favorite thing. Michael over here is the opposite. So I love talk insurance all day. I should have been an agent. So I have like 6 different insurance policies. So I've got errors and omissions. I've got a professional liability, which is the professional liability insurance. So that, like, if somebody thinks I messed up, because I'm not copying to anything, I don't mess up. So that'll cover that. General liability insurance will cover my office if something gets broken or ruined, or if I break something at somebody else's office. Got to have general liability insurance. I also have cyber insurance. I'm also bonded. So I've got just a ton of insurance, and this is where your insurance agent is going to help you immensely. Find an agent in an office and tell them what you do, and they're going to say you should probably have these packages. That's my advice.
I'd echo that. I have all those except for one of the last ones. She said, I forget which one it was, but yeah.
The bond.
The bond, not bond.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have all those as well. Plus, believe it or not, inland marine, renting lifts and other equipment. But your insurance broker should advise, if you find somebody you trust, they should tell you exactly what you need, and they're really going to do a deep dive into what you do. In my world, for example, it's different if you're installing alarms, intrusion alarms, or cameras. That there's different liability that goes with those things. So they should be asking you some deep questions about what exactly you do and don't do, and maybe even where you do it. For example, airports, prisons, those type of things. If you're doing work in some of those high risk environments, your insurance broker should know that so that they can get you the right coverage. So tell them everything and they'll tell you what you need.
Thank you very much. We figured out who Jackie is, and it is Jason. Jason, sorry about that. You'll have to watch the first half via the recording. Jason Anderson is been with us on every webinar. And for
I didn't know it was Jackie. Excuse me.
his name is coming up as Jackie. So, so we found out who it is.
Thank
So
you.
welcome to it. I apologize for that, but you can join us for the second half. Elton has a question for the next question. Go ahead.
All right, thank you. Alton McCallum. I work in mental health. I have a mental health counseling center, and then also a satellite office too. I'm kind of just asking the question of how you kind of change or shift some of your model. Initially, it's in person. Virtual counseling, things like that, but looking to increase residual income, because it does feel like on the hamster's wheel, continually seeing clients and clients and clients, right? Especially taking insurance, but looking to produce some product, some training courses, other things. And, what are, I guess, some of your advices to fund that while I take some time away from seeing the clients? Because doing both of them is just kind of impossible to create that. Just wanted some thoughts on how you scale and shift your business.
So this is an area where you're trading your time for money. So you see a client, you spend an hour with them, you go to the next client, you have to type notes for insurance, and it just never ends. And then by the end of the day, you're still behind on things you want to do 8 hours ago. I get that challenge. I have a lot of colleagues who work in the behavioral health field. So this is an area you might want to look into, outsourcing some things where you can identify, hey, well, I want to do X. Who can do X for me while I'm seeing clients? Or the other route is potentially, who else can you hire that can see clients? Who is a licensed behavioral health counselor or therapist in your state who can see that client while you build a business? So two ways: you can continue to see the clients and manage, and have someone outsource certain items while you're working with patients, or you could hire someone else to be the counselor, but then you have that trust model. Whereas that relationship between you and the patient or counselee is tight. It's a bond. Whereas you hire someone else, you might not have that there. So definitely some advantages, disadvantages to either direction that you might want to go.
So another option so I'm so sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was going to ask you that those are some good points. I was going to ask you the question because I'm also at the place. I do have contractors, but with IRS, there's a lot of regulations and how you train them. How much additional time you can require of them. And especially I deal quite a bit with trauma, how to navigate having employees versus contractors, and working all that is kind of the space where I'm trying to still figure out,
Yeah. So,
What state
oh, go ahead, Kilo.
Oh, sorry, I just wondering what state he's operating in.
I'm in Texas.
Texas, okay.
If I'm understanding your question, is the essence of your question, how do I work on my business instead of in my business?
Yes, that's a big portion.
Okay. So I think what Michael said would be my advice as well. Pick what you want to do, and you're going to have to get some help with the rest. And it sounds to me, if I'm understanding you correctly, that you want to step back a little bit and do a deep dive into some other revenue streams that might partner up well with what you're currently doing. And maybe at least on a partial basis, you could have someone else see clients for you while you do more of the heavy lifting of working on your business.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it would be a difficult transition to transition 100% tomorrow, because if you said, I have 34 clients who I see every 2 weeks, I'm just going to pass them all off to another counselor. then you build trust and you might lose some patients. And then you also run the risks and ethics of, is this patient being taken care of? Is there continuity of healthcare? So what you can do is, as a new patient comes in, maybe give that one new patient or client to the next counselor. And then so everyone that comes in, you start building up that person's caseload. And then once they're at a point where you can start transferring one or two over, you start opening up some time on your calendar to take care of some things that you want to take care of.
Definitely, and those are some good points. The question too, being a minority mental health counselor is, fairly rare within my community in my central region. So I'm getting clients, getting interest from that. And, majority of everyone else I'm passing off to don't meet that. So it's kind of, so I'm trying to figure that out and what's ethically right within our standards, but also saying, hey, I need to pass you off, right? And feeling like you're leaving the clients in lurch. So it's all those things kind of together. So I'm looking for people, kind of some of the college that are graduating, some people I can train, but then they have to be an employee. So.
Nelson, where in Texas are you located again?
I'm in Belton, so I'm basically right between Waco and Austin.
Okay. We've got some pretty good networks in the Texas area, in San Antonio, Austin, surrounding areas, El Paso, even down as far as El Paso, believe it or not. We've got a pretty big network there, and I can connect you specifically with someone. He's not in mental health, but he's an IVMF employee who's very connected in the Texas area that works on trying to match to get people hired to. He's also an entrepreneur as well. He's started his own company there. His name is Anthony Cosby, and I will send you his contact information tonight before I close my computer. And I'll let him know. Just see if we can connect you. If there's anything he might be able to do, or people that he knows. He's a minority business owner as well, and so he might have some really good connections in the area through our America Serves network.
Okay, thank you.
So I would offer like two pieces of advice. One is to do a SWOT analysis of yourself. Your personal strengths, your weaknesses are opportunities in that space that you're operating in, and in threats. And then outsource what you can after you do that analysis. And you want to bring staff on that complement you. So areas that you're strong in, you want to bring someone in who has that same strength. You want to bring someone in who is stronger in your area of weakness to sort of balance it out, and then you can sort of hand some of those tasks off to that individual. And then also you're talking about developing residual income. Something that jumps out to mind is you could develop some coursework or some briefings and put it on like platforms like Udemy and other coursework, and so that every time somebody goes to it, downloads it, views it, you get some income from it, some residual income, and that's something that you're not actually working for. You're not trading your time for that. You do that initial time up front, develop that series of briefings or courseware, or I don't know, tools or tips for mental health. I'm not even sure about that industry. And then every time somebody views it, you can get a little bit of revenue from that.
Okay. Thank you.
Great. So let's move on to another question that I have, that I kind of flipping it a little bit, thinking more introspectively, talking about, developing yourself and your network, both as an entrepreneur and a professional is very important. So how do you best leverage resources to help shape yourself and or your company?
So you say resources, or what do I do? Continue to read. I always read, never stop learning. If you can't really see over here, but I have a library of books that every time I I talk to someone. I have a mentor. I have a team of mentors actually that I continually ping and have set intervals that we meet, and then when something of urgent or something urgent pops up, I can pick up the phone and call. And every time I talk to them, I say, hey, what are you reading? What are you studying? What do you recommend? And just can continue to learn, take advantage of all free programs that are out there, and some things you got to pay for. But definitely leverage IVMF. There's a host of resources there. So that would be my advice.
Anyone else want to weigh in?
Yeah, so definitely just continuing to learn. I too have mentors. They're fantastic. They'll just tell you whatever you need to know. Like, here, do this, like a roadmap. So get a good mentor if you can. Podcasts are another thing that I'm slowly obsessed with. If I'm out walking, running, driving around, if I'm wanting to know a certain subject or to do something new in my business, a new product, or maybe about marketing or something, there is a podcast out there. Someone's literally laying it all out there for you. You can just turn it on whenever you have a moment. And then Udemy and Coursera, I think, is another course place where you can put your videos or learn from. So that's it.
I would say the second part of this question, Deanna, you were asking about, I think, the professional development of our teams,
Yes.
employees, which I think is equally important. I agree with what everyone else said about developing ourselves. I'm a lifelong learner for sure. And I spend a lot of time driving I-95 between my home in Florida and my office in Savannah. So I listen to a lot of books on a variety of business topics. But we have really spent a lot of time and effort developing the talents of our team. And I think that's super important. And we have found dividends from what they can accomplish, but also how they feel about themselves and how they feel about us, I think, in investing in them through professional certifications and training. So, and we just went so far as just kind of building a Love Me wall with all the framed certificates on one hallway of our office. And it just seems like people get a big kick out of that. They seem to be extremely proud of what they've accomplished as individuals. So I think it's the right move. I defer most of our training dollars to employee training. And the professional development I do on my own time as I'm driving down the road, or when IVMF is kind enough to offer something that I can hop on, I do that, and some other networks that I'm involved with. But so I would suggest that to all of you. I think you can't go wrong with that. If you have money to spend it on others.
Thank you very much. So here's kind of a big question, a very transparent. What is a big mistake you've made in the past when you were starting up, or even recently? And then the follow on to that is, how did you recover?
I'll jump right out there. Thinking that I can do everything myself. I'm a confident individual, but it's like someone told me to do that SWOT analysis, know your strengths, know your weaknesses. And focus on those that you do well, and for the other ones, you bring somebody on that can do that or learn it along the way. So for me, it was that bookkeeping thing. I kind of brushed on it earlier, but I started off with QuickBooks Online. Didn't want to pay for a bookkeeper. I figured I could do it myself, and everything seemed fine until I had a review for DCAA compliance, and it didn't go so well initially, and to go back and get somebody on and go through it and get it right. So we overcame it. Had to pay a little bit extra, so you have somebody go back and look at a year and a half's worth of transactions and get the chart of accounts right, and yeah, but we're good now. But yeah, that was my mistake, thinking I can do everything myself.
I've made lots of mistakes, many mistakes. The one that comes to mind early on, and I don't know how I could have done this differently, but I had maybe having a mentor that might have done it. Setting price points for services that were woefully inadequate to cover overhead expense. That's a fatal move right there. And it took us probably 18 months at least to realize that what we were charging for services and our billable hours just was never going to support our overhead. So then we had to make some adjustments, but and we did, and we survived. But getting some counsel early about what the market value of what you're offering is, benchmarking against others who are offering similar services, something to get those price points right, so you're not just running out of cash faster than you can imagine, which is what happened to us. You know, it wasn't a matter of not enough work, it was a matter of not enough income from that work. So that was a painful lesson, but we figured it out. And many other small ones. I would say a recurring theme, I am a detail person, and I kind of deep dive, read everything closely, but I've made a few misses and we've had some pain as a result of them. One that comes to mind is a Department of Labor investigation, which was generally with okay results for us. It could have been way more painful than it was, but you just have to have all your ducks in a row on everything, keep good records, and policies and everything should be in writing, particularly when it comes to HR things. So there's a good paper trail about what you did, so you can defend yourself, because inevitably you're going to be called up to answer questions by somebody at some point. I'm sure all of us have. You know, whether we did anything wrong or not, that's just a fact of being in business. So.
Yeah, I don't think there's ever really a perfect day. I could probably talk for 2 hours on mistakes that I've made in business in many years, and some are small and some are tragic. And you know, it's how we learn from them. And it was just yesterday that I woke up at 6:30 in the morning. I'm thinking, like, it's gonna be a great day. I got these 5 things to take care of, 5 things with like 74 subtasks, and then that's it. I'll be done by like 9 o'clock at night, no big deal. And then by 7 o'clock, had an HR issue, and then all these hours go by, and at 3 p.m. I'm walking upstairs, and Crystal asks, "Where are you going?" I was like, I'm gonna go shower, brush my teeth, and get started for the day, because I just get a free start. It's just, we lose control of everything really quickly. So I think the one area that I would say is important to avoid messing up is your own life. Personal care is really important. It's easy to dive into this 14, 15, 16 hours a day, and then you're like me yesterday, brushing your teeth at 3 p.m. because you were in an HR issue all day, ever since you woke up. So personal care is really important. A good, not work-life balance, life-work balance. Put your life first. Work will always be there. Put your family first. Take care of personal care. Your life, you know, that's the important thing. And so a lot of us as entrepreneurs identify that mistake that we make many years down the road, and sometimes it's too late to recover.
So that was really deep. I'm not going to be that deep. I concur with all of you guys on the lessons learned. But one of the biggest things that I did right away in business was trying to do everything everybody asked of me. Taking on the wrong clients, taking on the kind of clients I don't want to work with, taking on people I know are going to be not very nice to work with, work I don't want to do, work I didn't actually, you know, offer as a service, but they were asking and I wanted to please them, right? So taking on too much of stuff I hated doing, didn't want to be doing. So it took me a couple of years to realize that my client list was full of stuff I didn't want to do, people I didn't want to be working with, people who didn't value me, people who weren't paying me enough. And so I had to unwind that and rethink my business model and say, Crystal, what do you want to do? Just do that. Who do you want to work with? Just work with those people. And it takes a lot, you guys, to figure out how to say no when somebody says, can I hire you? It is asinine to me sometimes to be like, I can't believe I just let money walk out the door. But you know in your head from experience, it's going to cost you a lot more than money down the road. So that's my biggest lesson, is I took on every kind of work in the beginning when I should not have.
Elton didn't want to be forward, but I'll just say it. He wants to hire you, Crystal.
Okay, you can hire me. We'll see if we're a good fit.
Well, thank you all for sharing that. I've actually, that question is asked a lot in our panels, and it's always a learning experience for me to hear what others do. EBV this year, I had planned a fail up day. It was an idea that our director had, and pretty much we focused the majority of the day on failure and how you can move up from that, because you know, you can learn more potentially from your failures sometimes than your successes. So in 2021, we're going to have a fail up day if we can meet again in our residency program. So I'd like to just move on to one more question, and then I'll kind of ask a final after that, unless we have any other questions from the group. But some of you, I'm sorry, I couldn't find it. Oh, here we are. I apologize. So I know some of you have smaller companies than others, but culture is very important, no matter if you're the sole proprietor or if you have 500 employees. And so my question on that topic would be, how important is culture within your company, and how do you build it? You know, thinking about that this can be beyond employees, the culture you portray publicly on social media, and et cetera. So how important is culture within your company, and how do you build it?
So at the lab, culture is important for several reasons. One, it keeps people wanting to come to the lab every day. Well, now at least go to your living room every day and work from home. But it keeps people wanting to be employed at the lab. And then if you got the notification that you charged the computer, so we can get the charger real quick while I talk. Culture, okay. If people aren't happy at the lab, they're not going to want to come back to work every day. And so that's really important. So a couple of things that I do to drive culture is make it fun. And I also make it so there's rules so you can't take work home with you. We have a strict, well, since the pandemic and we've been swamped, but it's changed a little bit, but we have a strict 7 to 7 rule. No emails, no work between 7 p.m. and 7 a.m. I once caught an employee answering emails about 9 p.m. So I deactivated their email and activated it again the next morning. So that's your family time. Be with your family, enjoy it. Every one of the lab has a Nerf gun. And we have a list of words that you're not allowed to say. So if someone's caught saying one of those words, prepare to get shot by everyone with a Nerf gun who overheard that word. I once got shot on stage in a fireside chat because I said an inappropriate word. The word was employee. We can't say employee at work. And so I got shot, was on stage. So you make it fun and engaging. I try to have lunch catered in at least once a week before all the pandemic happened. Try to make people happy, just the small little things that make people want to come back to work every day.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I can go if the other two don't want to go. Sorry if I'm cutting you off. So, you know, like Mike, you know, be who you are. If you're, you know, fun, outgoing, you know, random person, be that at work. You know, your clients love it, your customers love it, your teammates love it. So with me, my vision statement was create EVVF, and it's perform beyond expectations. And that's for clients, that's for me as a leader, that's for, you know, my team members when they show up in their lives every day. So being there, doing well, doing great work, and being pleasant while you do it, I think is probably the most best thing you can do for your business. And that builds trust with you. People know that they can trust you. And that's my foundation of how I build my culture. It's an open space. It's more of a family than, you know, a workplace. We're all supportive of each other. And that goes with my clients too. So that's kind of how I try to look at it. Not as cool as Mike. I don't have Nerf guns though.
So,
Yeah, I don't have Nerf gun. I don't have Nerf guns either, but we do try to keep it fun. I think that our goal is to be best in industry employer. And that goes way beyond pay and benefits, although adding benefits is something that has taken us many years to get to, where we can afford a full benefit package. And we're proud that we got there, but let's be honest, once you get there, I think employees kind of forget that that's pretty great and other people don't offer it. It just becomes the new norm for them. But what doesn't is having a voice and feeling valued. And one thing we started doing this year was employee interviews. So we do a lot of social media stuff. So we do quick little interviews about our employees, and they get to tell their story. We have an interesting team that's several from places other than the US, and to just put a voice to that in their voice, they've gotten a big kick out of. And you can tell because on social media, you see how many of their people they forwarded to, they're sharing the story and everything. They're pretty proud of it, asking us when it's going to be published and everything. So I think that's gone a good ways to, as we define our best in industry, it's being a place where our employees want to work because they feel valued. So I think we're doing pretty well on that. It's something that we check in on often to make sure we are, because it's very important to us. I think that's what's going to distinguish us from others rather than the pay scale or the benefit package.
The difference between being a private employer and being a leader in the military is that you can have a bad day as a leader in the military. That person's still going to show up the next day. So you have a bad day as a leader in the private sector. That person could take off tomorrow with no notice. So you've got to really date your employees. And so the other part I forgot to mention earlier is that the other reason why I want to have a great culture and retain employees is because I despise the hiring process. For every 10 interviews I schedule, 5 show up. So I don't want to go through that ever again. And it's expensive and you lose continuity and training value. So yeah, I want to date my employees and to keep them happy, entertained, motivated, and a place that they really, really want to be.
I think the same can be said for clients as well. It takes a lot to get a client and to keep a client coming back and get that referral and word of mouth. So date your customers too. Not really, but in a metaphorical sense.
So I'll be brief on that one. To recap the question, it was how important is culture within your company and how do you build it? So the answer is very important. And that's actually part of the reason why I started the firm to begin with. After I retired from the military, I was at 2 large consulting firms, one Booz Allen and one PricewaterhouseCoopers. And from my experience from being in uniform and at those 2 large consulting firms, there was things that I found that I loved, and there were some things that I didn't like. And so, I wanted to create an organization that brought together the best of all those experiences and were the opposite of some of the negative things. So that was one of the key pillars, founding pillars of the culture for the company. So that's key, and we have a banner up in the office as well with it on it. And then how do we build it? So we go over those words, those key phrases. Then also we've had brainstorming sessions where we had the whole team together, and we asked about the topic of culture and what's important to each one of those team members, and then we identified those themes that were recurrent that the employees or team members spoke of, and then we worked to incorporate that into the company. So.
Thank you very much for sharing. We are pretty close to time, so I have a final question to ask our panelists, and I hope the answer should be pretty short. I've asked it every week at the end of our panel. And I did send this as a prep question to some people. I put them on the spot. If there is one book, podcast, quote, article, video that everyone should read or listen to, what would it be? What would your recommendation be?
So the book that I recommend is Once an Eagle. The author is Anton Myra. If you were an officer in the Army, you were probably forced to read it. It's a book on leadership. It's about 1,400 pages. Don't let that scare you. It's a really good book. But if you have that transition period between being a military leader and a civilian leader, it's a great reminder of how to be perceived as a leader and how your employees and team members will respect you.
Leave it to the PhD to recommend a 1,400 page book. I'm just kidding.
Could have recommended War and Peace.
All right, anyone else have a recommendation?
I really liked You're a Badass at Making Money by Jen Cicero. Otherwise, my answer is all of them. Read all of the books.
For me, if one, it would be the E-Myth by Michael E. Gerber. So that's a mandatory reading.
I've got a big stack of books I'd love to recommend, but I think for this group with starting your ventures, this is not heavy reading, it's not War and Peace, but the podcast, How I Built This by Guy Raz, NPR's Guy Raz is the person that does the interviews for that. Probably many of you have heard of it. He's been doing it for a couple of years. But if you want a little inspiration about people who had a good or maybe not great idea, but developed in a very successful business, many times taking them public, that's a great solution here or there about, JetBlue or Dyson, all these ideas, Airbnb, and people like us who just thought of something and made it into something really good, and all their trials and tribulations. So I find inspiration to this.
Can you say that last sentence again, Kathleen? We had a little bit of a connection issue.
Yeah, I think I'm in an unstable space. I don't remember what I said. You got the recommendation, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay, I think my last sentence was that it's inspirational because it just shows me that mere mortals like you and I can do this and can do it well and be successful. So it's a good shot in the arm if you're looking for that, light and easy.
I have one alibi. You also mentioned podcasts. I like the Stanford University's, they have a series on entrepreneurship. It's called Stanford Innovation, Entrepreneurship and Ethics. I like that, and I listen to that all the time. They always have a different one that pops up, a different article that pops up. So.
Thank you very much. Lastly, I figured I'd give a recommendation on books since it's our last week. It doesn't really have to do with running a business, but it has to do with relating to people. There are actually two books. The first book, it's actually the same writer for the second book who collaborated with a psychologist, a secular psychologist. So the first book is more related both to personality and to spiritual things. And that's called The Delicate Art of Dancing with Porcupines, Appreciating the Finer Points in Others. The follow-on to that book was a collaboration from the original writer from that book, and then, as I said, another psychologist, and that is called How to Deal with Annoying People. And the first chapter, you open it up and it says the 4 social styles of annoying people, meaning that at some point in time, we all are annoying to each other. So, and that just has, like I said, it's just more so of how you relate to people. It helps you kind of predict their behavior and to figure out how to respond, how to get along. So they're pretty neat books. I enjoy those. I'll post these in the chat here at the end, but I'd just like to say, I know we're a little over. Thank you so much to our panelists. Thank you, Kathleen and Kilo, Michael and Crystal. I really appreciate you being a part of today, of kind of bringing this all together for our group. And I know some of you are watching this recording, so you've heard this twice. Some of you who logged in late, I'll be sending up a follow-up email later on this week to kind of finish out the class. to kind of send you a couple of next steps and to talk about another webinar that will be optional but recorded that introduces you to our alumni services manager. And now that you're a graduate of one of our programs, what networks, resources, other programs are available to you. Lastly, I want to mention a new program that will be coming out soon. You'll all be added to an email list now and to our newsletter, so you'll get updates about new programs. And that program is set to potentially be called RISE. It is a pivoting program. So it is in response to COVID-19. We have a lot of businesses right now that are having to pivot their business because of the pandemic. But as many of you know, a lot of businesses in their time pivot. Did you know Nokia used to sell rubber galoshes? Like, they pivoted to a technology company, not to mention YouTube, Twitter, Instagram. I mean, they were all unheard of things before they pivoted. So it's really meant to hopefully sustain past the COVID time and meant to be taken multiple times throughout the life of your business, if at different times in your business. So it's for you as a sole proprietor, or it's for you as an owner of a business with 500 employees. And more information will be coming out. I just kind of wanted to give you a little taste of that program, and it is completely virtual as well. So it's an 8-week program. So we're going to start it this fall. But just pay attention to your email because you'll get something about it once we introduce it. And we're going to have a couple of webinars leading up to this, this program to answer questions about the program, to give everybody a better idea of what the program entails and how it can help you. So with that being said, I just want to thank, not only I said thank you to our panelists, but thank you so much to you as a class for being with us in this pilot program. You will also next week be getting a post-program survey. It is so important. I can't stress it enough for you to fill that out and be as honest as possible. It is completely anonymous. And the more honest you are, you're not going to hurt my feelings. The more honest you are about the program, the better we can improve it. Because it's all about making this program the best that it can be. And so I really appreciate your honest feedback there. If you have any other questions in the meantime, you know Sandra's email, you know my email. You can post them and ask the instructor on Blackboard, but you will have access to the Blackboard learning platform for 1 year. So all the resources that are there, and then we're going to add a couple of other videos on there that you can just watch, and we'll make an announcement through Blackboard to let you know. Things like HR, legal, things like that you can watch in your own time that weren't a part of this formalized course, but just follow on videos that can help you. And I think that's all I needed to share. So again, thank you so much. It was great to see all of you on Zoom. And I hope that I will be able to see you all in person someday. I know we will get back to that place. I just don't know when. So again, thank you panelists, thank you class, thank you Sandra for all that you've done so far for this class and will do still in the rest of the week to come. Don't forget to turn your homework in by Sunday. We want to make sure that you graduate. All right, thank you all.
Y'all can unmute your microphones and say goodbye to each other. This is our last time together. If you need more time than Sunday, reach out to me. Thank you, everyone. Great having you all in class.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank
you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Hot dog man.
Hey, bye. This is not a virtual background. This is Jamaica.
Happy hour. All right.
Yeah, man.
Oh, bring me a
Bye-bye.
All right. Okay, I'm really going to end this now. Bye, everybody.
All right, bye.